In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers vanished into the frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains. When rescuers finally found their camp, they discovered something no one could explain. The tent had been cut open from the inside. Footprints in the snow showed the hikers had fled into sub-zero temperatures. Some barefoot, some in their underwear. What could make experienced outdoorsmen run from shelter into a deadly winter night? 6 decades later, the answer remains one of history's most haunting mysteries. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident, a tragedy that has puzzled investigators, scientists, and historians since 1959. It is a story about ambition, friendship, and the unforgiving power of nature. It is also a story that has been buried under decades of rumor and speculation. Tonight, we set aside the myths and focus only on what the evidence actually tells us. This is a factual account of what happened, what investigators found, and why, even today, questions remain. The Ural Mountains stretch nearly 1,500 miles, forming a natural boundary between Europe and Asia. In the winter of 1959, this remote range was covered in deep snow, battered by fierce winds, and largely untouched by human presence. The nearest settlements were hours away by rail and truck. For a certain kind of traveler, this isolation was the appeal. Soviet youth in the 1950s embraced a culture of extreme tourism, testing their endurance against some of the harshest terrain in the country. Kholat-Syakhl, the mountain where the tragedy would unfold, carries a haunting name in the language of the local Mansi people, Dead Mountain. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student known for his careful planning and technical skill. Alongside him were Zenaida Kolmogorova, Lyudmila Dubinina, Rustem Slobodin, Yuri Krivonashenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, and Semyon Zolotaryov, an older, more experienced outdoorsman who joined the group shortly before departure. Most were students or graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, skilled skiers with real backcountry experience. This was not a group of amateurs. They were selected specifically for their competence, and their trip was registered with the Institute's sports club as a Grade 3 expedition, the most difficult classification at the time. On January 23, 1959, the group departed from Sverdlovsk by train, eventually reaching the small settlement of Vijay, the last inhabited outpost before true wilderness. A 10th member, Yuri Yudin, was forced to turn back early due to illness, a decision that would save his life and later make him a key witness. The remaining 9 pressed onward, skiing into increasingly remote terrain. Photographs developed later from their own cameras show a group in good spirits, joking, building fires, and documenting their progress. Their planned route would take them over Kholat-Syakhl, then on to Mount Otorten, with an expected return by February 12th. By January 31st, the group had reached the edge of a highland plateau, where the terrain grew harsher and the weather turned. Diary entries recovered later described strong winds and dropping temperatures. The group cached surplus food and equipment at this point, planning to collect it on their return trip, a normal practice that reduced their load for the final ascent. The next day, February 1st, they began their climb up Kholat-Syakhl. It was here that a critical decision was made. Rather than descending into the shelter of the tree line as planned, they set up camp directly on the exposed slope, Investigators have long debated why the group chose the exposed slope. Some believe poor visibility during a snowstorm caused them to misjudge their position. Others point to Dyatlov's meticulous nature, suggesting he wanted to practice a technique for camping on an incline ahead of a future expedition. Whatever the reason, the choice left the group without natural protection from the wind. Photographs from the final roll of film show the hikers digging into the snow to level a platform for their tent methodically without any visible sign of panic or danger. Nothing in these final images suggests the group anticipated what was coming. Sometime during the night of February 1st, the hikers' tent was cut open from the inside. Investigators later confirmed the cuts were made with a knife from within the tent, not from outside. This detail is critical. It tells us the group chose to cut their way out rather than exit through the tied entrance, suggesting they believed they needed to escape immediately. Footprints preserved in the snow, later photographed by investigators, showed that all 9 hikers left the tent and moved down the slope on foot. Many were inadequately dressed for the cold. Some wore only socks. One was barefoot. The footprints in the snow told investigators that the group moved together in a controlled manner down toward a tree line roughly a mile away. This was not a scattered, panicked stampede. It appears to have been an organized, if urgent, retreat. Near a large cedar tree, searchers later found the remains of a small fire and the bodies of Krivonyshenko and Doroshenko, both severely underdressed for the cold. Broken branches on the cedar, several meters up, suggested one of them had climbed the tree, likely to look back toward the camp or to gather firewood. Between the cedar and the tent, searchers found the bodies of Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, each positioned as though they had been trying to climb back up the slope toward camp. It appeared this group had made an attempt to return, likely to retrieve warmth or supplies, before succumbing to the extreme cold. The final 4 hikers, Dubinina, Zolotaryov, Kolovatov, and Thibaut Brignol, were not discovered until months later, buried under snow in a ravine further into the forest. Their injuries were more severe than the others, including fractured ribs and skull damage. Soviet investigators at the time attributed these injuries to the force of falling into the ravine, a natural terrain feature with a steep drop, rather than to any external attack, and found no wounds consistent with hand-to-hand trauma. When the group failed to return by their expected date, alarm spread among their families and the university. A search operation launched in mid-February involving volunteers, students, military personnel, and aircraft. On February 26th, searchers found the abandoned tent, collapsed and partially buried, its entrance cut open. The first bodies were located soon after, scattered across the slope in the positions we've described. The scale of the search and the involvement of Soviet military and police reflected just how seriously authorities treated the disappearance from the very beginning. Soviet authorities opened a formal criminal investigation led by prosecutor Lev Ivanov. Autopsies revealed that 6 of the 9 hikers died of hypothermia. The remaining 3 died from fatal physical injuries. Investigators also noted that some clothing found on the bodies contained low levels of radiation, a detail later explained by the fact that Krivonyshenko and Doroshenko had worked at a facility that involved radioactive materials before the expedition. The official case file, declassified decades later, concluded that the deaths were caused by a compelling natural force, a vague phrase that has fueled speculation ever since. Ivanov himself later suggested, in personal writings, that he could not fully explain every detail of the case. For decades, theories ranged from avalanche to military testing to extreme weather phenomena. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case and officially concluded that an avalanche, though small and delayed, was the most likely trigger. In 2021, a team of Swiss and Russian researchers published a study in the journal Communications, Earth and Environment, using engineering models originally developed for the film Frozen to simulate snow slab behavior. Their research showed that a delayed slab avalanche, triggered by the hikers cutting into the slope to pitch their tent, was physically plausible on that terrain, even without visible avalanche debris the next morning. This would explain the sudden, urgent evacuation and the severe injuries suffered by some of the hikers, consistent with the compression forces of a snow slab rather than a fall or an attack. The Dyatlov Pass Incident became one of the most enduring mysteries in modern history, inspiring books, documentaries, films, and continued scientific inquiry for over 60 years. The site itself was renamed Dyatlov Pass in honor of the group's leader. Each year, hikers and researchers still travel to the region, some to study the terrain, others simply to pay respects. The story has also become a case study in search and rescue protocol and cold weather survival research, influencing how modern expedition safety guidelines address extreme terrain decisions and emergency shelter procedures. The Dyatlov Pass incident reminds us how quickly conditions in remote wilderness can turn deadly, even for the most experienced and well-prepared travelers. It underscores the importance of terrain assessment, camp placement, and respecting the unpredictable power of snow and cold. It also illustrates how uncertainty, when left unexplained, can create space for speculation to overshadow science. The most recent research suggests a natural, if rare, phenomenon was likely responsible, a reminder that even the most mysterious tragedies often have grounded scientific explanations once we look closely enough. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Lyudmila Dubinina, Rustem Slobodin, Yuri Krivonishenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Alexander Kolovatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Semyon Zolotaryov set out on an adventure many of us can only imagine. Their story is not just a mystery to be solved, but a tragedy to be remembered with respect. Science has brought us closer than ever to understanding what happened on that mountain. But their courage, curiosity, and camaraderie remain the true heart of this story. What do you think this case teaches us about the limits of human preparation against nature? If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing and sharing it with others who appreciate carefully researched, respectful storytelling. There are many more true stories waiting to be uncovered, and we'll continue bringing them to you, one verified fact at a time.